Hello, everyone. It's Giselle here from Kids Yoga Stories, and I'm really excited to have with us today Angie from Believe in Yoga. She teaches children's yoga and adult yoga, I think, too, right? You teach,
Yes.
yes. And she was also a Kids Yoga Stories ambassador last year. So, really excited to talk today to you, Angie, about marketing. The thing that's on a lot of people's minds, we hear this a lot in our community about, okay, great. So, I've done my training, or I'm really enthusiastic about bringing yoga to children. But now, how do I actually fill my classes, or how do I get into schools, or how do I share my love for yoga with children? So I'd love to talk
Exactly.
to you about that. But before we do, I'd love to hear about your background. Can you share with us, please, about how you got started and how you developed Believe in, and tell us about your passion and your work?
Sure. When I was pregnant with my daughter, the company that I worked for was actually sold and they were terminating all of the employees. So I either could have kind of went, oh, what am I going to do now? But instead I was, oh, this is awesome. I have a brand new opportunity to do whatever I want to do. So when I was on my maternity leave, I took my yoga teacher training and I have been teaching ever since. My daughter's almost 14 now,
Oh
so
my
it's
gosh.
been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then because of her, I always taught adult classes, but then looking at all the stuff that she was going through at school and having resources, I came across your resources, which were amazing. And then I thought, well, why don't I kind of teach kids yoga? And so that kind of became my new thing was teaching kids yoga. So, and that's kind of how I got into it.
Amazing. Great. And so have you found over the years then, because you had to make that transition, what have you found have been the most effective ways to market your business?
It depends on the season and kind of where things are. When I first started teaching kids yoga, it was pre-COVID. So it was a little bit easier to talk to people in person. And I sat on my daughter's school council. So I kind of had an in there.
Yeah.
But then during COVID, it was very much all online marketing because you couldn't really talk to people or do anything.
Yeah.
And then after COVID, it just became kind of word of mouth and cold calling and anything like that. So I've kind of done almost everything from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, great. And let's break that down. So first and foremost, you started your business and you made a website, right? I've looked at your website.
I
It's
did.
great. So you've got a website and you've got some social media links, right?
Yep.
Has that been a source of finding people as well to your social media, or is it just sort of like just to show lights are on and I run a business kind of thing?
So it's kind of both. I don't get a whole lot of feedback from getting classes from the social media, but the social media is always good to get people connecting with you and getting your name out there, letting them know exactly what you're doing, what you're excited about. So that was one thing that I really loved about social media was what am I excited about? What classes am I teaching this week? What am I teaching in these classes this week? Like I was doing a Dr. Seuss class a couple of weeks ago. So I posted like the Dr. Seuss
Right.
books that I was going to be using. And so it was just kind of, hey, this is what's going on. So
Right. I love that. And so that's a really interesting reframe or a different perspective on social media, using it more of a like a know, like, and trust, right? And so if
yeah,
you were to write a cold call, say email to someone, they could get on social media and search you up. So not just your website, but with social media allows you to add more dynamic, pictures or videos or testimonials and things like that to that are more relevant, right? And so it
exactly.
operates more of a complement to your website. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It gets if people can come to your social media, your website is linked to your social media regardless.
Right.
And then you have if people are commenting on your social media, that gives people a good idea of, oh, this is a really interesting person, or
Yes.
they have people like that person, or they have something to say. So it's really great when you have past students or current students that kind of are like, yeah, she was awesome, or I love this idea, or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not
love
just
it.
me all the time.
Yeah. So it's social proof, right? Again, that
Yes,
you are, you're a legit person, right? And then also people can find you in your local community, right? So on Facebook, that allows you to be in your community, or you could share that your page onto a local community forum or page so that they could learn you
Exactly.
and you live down the road kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
And you might
exactly.
know somebody who knows somebody, so then you get that advantage of, the linkage that way. Yeah, I love it. And I think that's some of the issue with social media for kids yoga teachers is sort of like, where do I start? It's the overwhelm, right? And so how do you schedule that? Do you give yourself like, okay, I'm going to do an hour a week, or, are you just kind of popping on when, how do you not get kind of lost in the rabbit hole of social media?
So I actually set up a social media calendar for myself.
Perfect.
And what I do with that calendar is I go and look at holidays or festivals that are going on, stuff like that. And then I also Google like really bizarre days that are happening, like ice cream day or something like that. And then take from a kid's perspective, what would be encouraging to them, or what would they be interested in seeing, or what would the parents like to see? So then I would post like, hey, it's ice cream day, or in January, there's actually ice cream for breakfast day, which is amazing because it's just like, hey, you can have ice cream for breakfast with your kids on this day. So,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So you're providing more. It's not just yoga mindfulness, but you're providing more. That's the opportunity there. I love it. So let's talk more about the word of mouth, because that's definitely a lot of people we hear. There's lack of confidence, right? And sort of fear of failure, right? Like, what if I, email and I don't hear back, or what if I ask someone and they say no, right? But I feel like with word of mouth, this is what I did when I first started, right? I had my books. You can see behind me, I had my books that I would share with a friend, and they would give me their comments, and then you share it with another friend, and then you kind of build from there. So for you, what has been sort of you said you were at a school, you were on the committee. Talk us through how you went about the word of mouth advertising.
So at the school, because I sat on the committee, it was kind of like, okay, I think this is a good idea. And then I gave them the whole platform, everything that would happen. And then I removed myself from the conversation because it was money to be spent. So they needed to decide, are we going to spend the money? Or are we not going to spend the money? But they had the information from me already. When I was developing the kids yoga program that I do for online, I sent it to a bunch of teachers that I knew. I actually know a plethora of teachers for some unknown reason.
Right.
And I sent it to them and said, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this outline? And I got feedback from a lot of them that said, this is awesome. What about this? And, oh, what if you're in like a low income, what would you have to offer them? So kind of, it was a good feedback from that perspective. I'm not really great at self-promoting myself. So if you can get one person who's a friend of yours that loves what you do and they can spread the word for you, that is amazing, because then you don't have to do it yourself. And you don't have to feel like you're patting yourself on the back all the time, which is kind of what I feel like when I'm self-promoting. So.
Right. I love it. And it reminds me of someone in our ambassador program who did just that. She was a kids yoga teacher, and her sister-in-law was the one who did the promotion. Right. But nonetheless, you still have some tips there about, going with people, and getting that feedback loop is so important. And so once you're getting that information from your friends who are teachers, right, it builds your confidence, because you think, if they think it's a great idea, and they're validating what I'm thinking or helping me to tweak it, that also kind of builds you up, right? To think, oh, I have something here, this isn't just a fly by night. This really is something that could work, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily, and that's the thing, is I sent it to all these teachers, and then I started sending it out to schools and stuff, and I wasn't getting a whole lot of response, but I still knew from the feedback that I'd got previously that it was a good program. It was a good idea, that there is a need for it. It's just a matter of getting that one person to take it and roll with it. So yeah.
Exactly. Another thing I saw, another idea was to put together a pitch. I saw one of your proposals. So that was the next step after the sort of the word of mouth. The next step was for you to go out to community organizations, right? And you had a proposal. So talk us through tell us that process about putting that together.
So the proposal was it was a lot of work actually, just to put it out there. It wasn't just let's sit down and write something. It took me a few weeks to actually get it tweaked, and then I sent it out to people and they kind of revised it. Um, but the one thing that I loved about it was who am I and why do I love what I do? And why should I be the person that you're bringing in to do this teaching? And why is this teaching important?
Yeah.
So, and then with the proposal, because I was going into schools, I looked up physical education curriculum where I live. And lo and behold, there's wellness and mindfulness in their curriculum. So I started pulling that data from the curriculum. And then I did a lot of research on how health and wellness and mindfulness is effective with children. So that's in the proposal too. So it was
Love it.
research as well as not just writing about yourself.
Yeah. And that's so important because that's what the administration want to see, right? And teachers, they want to know whatever they're doing has to have a positive outcome, has to have,
Yes.
Attachment to an educational standard, right? It has to have that return on investment, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
That they're going to invest in this money and this time. It has to benefit them, right? In the educational standard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So you've got the proposal together. Talk us through what did you do with that proposal and what kind of organizations did you reach out to?
So I sent it to all of my teacher friends and said, even if you're retired, you probably know somebody that you could pass this on to.
Right.
I also happened to be a guide leader at the time.
Yeah.
So I sent it to all the parents of my guiding unit and offered them. So if you can get your kid's teacher, one of your kid's teachers to say yes to this program, I'll give you a free yoga class.
Right.
So there was that incentive as well. I started to go to private schools. I sent it out personally to private schools and Montessori schools. If you might sent emails for a long time were like cut and paste of the same email, but to different people. Right. And it was just looking through them all. And there was a lot of emails that went through and not very many came back, but the ones that came back were positive and they were the ones that wanted the program. So it was always good to hear, even if they didn't move forward with it, they just said, yeah, this is a great idea. We can't afford to do this right now or whatever. So you kind of know you're still on the right path to what you're doing.
Yes. Well, I think that really highlights too, Angie, is that, we go into this work because we love children and we love yoga mindfulness and we can see the benefits on ourselves and those around us, right? Yeah. We didn't necessarily sign up to be a sales and marketing person or manager, right? And so it is a separate skill that we have to find our way, find our own voice, find our authenticity, right? That we have to speak from using the yoga philosophy, thinking about ethics and integrity and thinking about our values, right? And so you have to find your voice in all of that. So I know from what a lot of our community members say, well, okay, great. So that's made a lot of time, which I don't have, and I want to fill my classes. And I send these emails and I don't get anything back, or I have a class and maybe 6 people sign up, but only 2 people show up. Like, what did you do in those moments? And I know we kept in touch during COVID, right? Where that was tricky time as well. What's your advice to people who get a little bit, who get frustrated or who just get deflated or just don't know if they should continue? What can you suggest for people in those moments?
So there's a lot of self-doubt that comes with that. Right. And so the one thing that I started to do was doing things that I enjoyed doing. So when we hit COVID and I had just been teaching in the school, and then suddenly COVID hit and I wasn't allowed to go in the school anymore. And even after that, I wasn't allowed to go back in the school, but I still wanted it out there for people to use. So I started making videos at home. Right. And my daughter's teacher, a lot of the teachers, they didn't know what to do for gym for online learning. Right. So my daughter's teacher at the time used to take my videos and send them off to his students, and that was their gym class for the day. And he still talks to her about that today. Right. And it's 3 years later. If you have students that sign up and they don't show up, then it's probably not you. I have a class that has 6 students in it, and for the first 2 weeks, I had one student show up. And so you just kind of have to, and I was like, okay, is it me? Am I not teaching what they want to learn?
Right.
Or so I asked the person who was running the class, I said, so like, do you have any feedback for me? Because feedback is awesome. If they love the class, then that's great. And there's just issues with like illness or being away or whatever, then that's great to know. So if you feeling self-doubt, I would definitely say ask if there's somebody to ask for improvements, even the parents.
Yeah.
Email the parents or talk to them and say, hey, what do your kids really love about the class? What don't they like about the class? Because then you can change it up and make it more fun for the kids and for you. Because if the kids aren't having fun, you're not having fun.
Right. And I think that also speaks to there's a piece of, yes, there's a self-doubt and lack of confidence, right? So it's over, this stuff is over here. But there's also something that we need to think about is the market, the audience. And so maybe there isn't a market in that area or at that location or in that school, right? And so if the schools, even if I've been in a situation where I've talked to principals, the principals are totally on board, we don't have to sell them or anything, but there just isn't the budget. And the teachers just aren't quite ready, right? And so sometimes a no is no now, and it might be a yes later. But
Absolutely.
to understand that in your location, for example, are there enough children visiting this organization, or is there somewhere else you can go? Like somebody else from our ambassador was talking about, she gets in a lot of preschools she's found easier to get into, but she's had a harder time getting into community organizations like what you've been successful with, right? And so it just depends on where you are, what your locations are. So it's not
Absolutely.
always about you and what you're doing, right?
No, I teach adult yoga in a yoga studio that can't get a kids program running. And it's not, I wanted to run one, another yoga teacher wanted to run one, and they cannot get one running for anything. And it's just because of where they're located and their clientele.
Right.
So, because they do massage and acupuncture, so most of their clientele is older generation. And so they don't have kids to bring in to do kids yoga.
Perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of kind of finding where that niche is, which is not always easy.
Right. And it's funny because it can happen both ways. So when my daughter was little, I was motivated. I knew she wouldn't learn from me. So I was motivated to bring a yoga teacher to us in our town. So I went to the local yoga studio, and opposite problem. We had lots of kids sign up, but I had to find the teacher. Right. So that was opposite. And then the same thing at the school, it was easier to pitch to an after school. I took the same teacher and I introduced her to the after school program. So that was easier too, because you already have parents especially the younger ages, definitely a younger before they get into sports and things like that. So younger was much easier. Go where they're already at, right?
Exactly.
And make sure you're not, and scheduling too, right? So scheduling, it's not on nights where basketball or swimming or baseball, trying to find the right time and location is important too, right?
Yeah. So the class that I'm teaching now is actually, strangely enough, it's Friday nights, which I thought was kind of odd, and it's at 4:15. So it's between that after school time and dinner time. So it's a good time frame, and it's only 45 minutes. So they have enough time to come in, and then they have enough time to get home and have dinner. So it's a perfect time frame.
Right, exactly. And that's the kind of like that Friday period is kind of like the witching hour before, the end of the school week, right? And otherwise they would just come home and be on screen like my kiddo, right?
Exactly.
And so something for them to go to, I think that's a great idea. So can you tell us a story, Angie, because we do love stories, about maybe a situation where, you've given us a couple ideas there about when things didn't go so well, or how do you do you have any more stories to tell us about your marketing and things that turn into a success?
So the one thing and I said that I'm not very good at self-promoting, but this past fall, I decided that I was going to do some cold calling, which is totally not my thing. But I went to a mental health facility that I knew catered to children. And I sent them an email and said, hey, I teach kids yoga, and would you be interested in starting up a program? And I met with the owner, and she was amazing. She's like, this is a fantastic idea. So then we just kind of picked when we wanted to do it, when we wanted to start. how long the program was going to be. So we decided on 6 weeks because 4 weeks is a little too short.
Yeah.
There's no real commitment. 6 weeks, there is a commitment there, so people do show up. And then it gives you that if they're sick for a week, they still get five classes.
Yeah.
And the first session I ran, we had, I think, 2 or 3 students sign up for it. And we literally, I think we had a 2-week turnaround. So we decided to do the program, and then 2 weeks later we started it. So that we had 2 weeks to get kids in the class.
Right.
And then the kids that were there, the parents they knew each other. So they started talking to other parents.
There is the word of mouth again. That's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had 4 kids the next session. And then this session that I'm running now, we have 6 in the class. And it's just amazing. But like I said, sometimes I only have 1 kid show up. But I mean, we've had March break. We had all winter stuff where people were just sick. But it's awesome just to be there and word of mouth. And she wants to keep going with the classes. A couple of the kids that were there for the first session that didn't come back, they want to come back. So it's getting bigger, and and the beauty is I don't have to do hardly anything. I show up and I teach. Right. And it's all because I took the courage to contact somebody that I didn't know, but thought maybe they had the potential to be able to run a program.
I love it.
So
I love it. And it really is, it's finding the people, it's making those connections, right? Because there are people out there looking for you, right?
Exactly.
And it's about finding them, right? Or planting in their mind, oh, here's the benefit, or providing them something different that they could offer their community. So it's about if we can kind of get over our own thoughts, right? Like you talked about the courage, right? And thinking beyond yourself and thinking about your why. Why is this? You kind of get out of your own way, right? And think about the benefit to children, right? And so making these cold calls. And I love the way you talked about that slow and steady. Let's be honest, it's not, I haven't heard if any situations where it was like an overnight success, right? It's generally a slow, steady kind of a side hustle to begin with, right? You do have to put in a lot of time. It's like anything when you're starting a small business, right? But it does pay off once they know, like, and trust you. They start to tell their friends. It's definitely worth it in the end. Yeah.
Exactly. The other thing that I would say is to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So not necessarily where you would normally go. Like the class that I'm teaching now is in a mental health facility. So typically not someplace that I would think, oh, I want to go teach yoga there. Yeah. But so think outside the box of different places where you might be able to find somebody who's, hey, that would be great to add to our program. I suggested it to our county rec program, and they didn't take me as the teacher, but they now teach kids yoga with the county. So, I mean, at least it's getting taught.
Yes, exactly. That I was thinking too about, I remember somebody else, a colleague of mine, she said she started by subbing in being a substitute teacher. And so when she moved to a new town, she was a substitute teacher. So she got to know some of the families, got to know the administration and the teachers. And that was sort of her in, right? So sometimes it's about, where are the places that you're visiting, or who do you know goes where? And as you say, using the creativity and out of the box. I love that. Is there anything else you want to share that we haven't mentioned about marketing?
I don't think so. Those are my probably key ones, is to use your Facebook and have a website, but don't use your Facebook just for marketing. Make it very personable and kind of get out there and make it fun, especially if you're doing kids yoga. Make it fun. Yeah. And think outside the box of when you want to do things and how you want to do things. Like I started the video program because I couldn't go into the schools. Yeah. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just make the videos and send them to the teachers via YouTube links. So it's just things like that.
Yeah.
Just start to think different ways to do things.
All right. So you must tell us your website. Where can we find you? Tell us your Facebook page and wherever else people want to connect with you and ask you more questions.
So everything is actually under Believe In. My website is www.believein.ca because I'm Canadian. And my Facebook is the same. My Instagram is the same. My YouTube, I believe, is the same as well. So yeah,
we'll make
made it all kind of consistent. That's the other thing, is kind of make everything consistent.
Yes. Right. And there's a brand, right? That's another conversation we have. It's about creating your own brand. Love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Angie. I so appreciate it. I have no doubt there'll be lots of little nuggets for people to take away. Thanks so much.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
You.
See you.
Bye.